Buckeye Talk is about to begin. Hey, 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 come on in.
Welcome back to Buckeye Talk. I am Stephen Means, and that is Stefan Krajisnik. And as you can see, we are joined by one of the most important men in the state of Ohio and one of the busiest men in the state of Ohio, athletic director for Ohio State, Ross Bjork. Ross, how's I guess downtime hanging for you? We were just talking about it off here, how this is like the busiest off season in the world because obviously, yes, like football's king here, but there's 35 other sports you got to deal with.
Yeah, we were talking about that. We were just talking about this weekend as we're recording this, just all the home activities that we have going on. And, it's exciting. It's exciting. It's what you do. You see your athletes compete. I wish I could clone myself and say, hey, I can be at, wrestling, tennis, hockey, and hockey at the same time, but not going to happen. And then you have other stuff that comes up. You might have some travel. You might have other trips. There's national things going on. There might be a Big Ten meeting. And then football here is 365, 24/7, like you said. But it's all good. It's we're lucky we're at Ohio State. We have these are good challenges to deal with. As we said, things are good.
Yeah. Before we kind of get into some of the specific, I know we want to talk about football and NIL and all that comes with that. I'm curious from your perspective. Like when you arrived at Ohio State and you had some of that time with Gene and you saw kind of the lay of the land, and now you've had a year or so fully under your belt kind of doing all this. What have you learned along the way? Like what's something that you've learned about Ohio State that when you arrived you had no clue about?
Yeah, there's so many things, Stefan, and Stephen, that go into this job of this magnitude. Just as an example, today I went to the Columbus Chamber of Commerce annual breakfast. We just created a new partnership with the Chamber of Commerce to really help them amplify their message, but also give us access to the business community to just do more in the business community, to engage. And then my role on the Columbus Sports Commission, we unveiled the women's basketball 2027 Final Four logo with the Columbus Sports Commission. And we have a role there. One, we're hosting, but I'm also on the Sports Commission role. And so the point is, to your question, I didn't realize the scope and scale. I mean, you know about Ohio State, you know about the brand power, you see TV ratings, we track all that in our industry. But really within our community, I think the people power of the program, and where everybody is a Buckeye fan in this state, in this town. And if you're not, you're kind of around it at least. Mm-hmm. Right. And you probably you're paying attention because everybody else is talking about it. So probably the intersect of the people in the relationships and their interconnectivity of all the different moving parts, from, donors to fans to civic engagement to showing up at games like we were talking about. Look, people are what make everything work in this world, but here especially, the relationships are so deep. And so that overlap with Gene, what I saw is he had a gift. He had a gift where he just made everybody feel connected. He was super positive. He was visible. And so, look, that's kind of been my style all along as well. So continuing that culture, continuing that vibe. There's not a lot of like technical things that I do. There just aren't, right? But there's a lot of people impressions that hopefully make the technical things happen because you're visible, you're around, you're setting direction, you're setting vision, whatever it might be. So kind of a roundabout way to say the people here matter the most. And until you're in it, you can't really understand that. But that's really what I've learned about being a Buckeye. And it's an awesome, powerful tool that we have to work with.
And there's obviously the power. You're talking about that power, just the power of like what Ohio State is and the voice it has just across college sports in general. Not just, and I know, listen, we're going to talk mostly football here, but obviously there's 35 other sports involved with this, and there's a lot that goes into being the AD here. The most recent thing that's happened in the football world is the schedule being finalized. I know we've known the opponents for a while, but now we have dates and everybody can book flights and all the travel plans and all those different things, which on our side of things is just as much of excited release as it is on your part, I'm sure it is, right? Are you yourself, Ryan, Mark, everybody involved, is everybody happy with how the schedule kind of shook out for Ohio State, given last year, I mean, you spent most of October on the road, right? So are you guys happy with how things ended up maybe shaking out there for you guys?
Yeah, no one's ever happy with their schedule in January, right? Let's get through spring practice and then evaluate, are we happy, and then see what everybody else has too. Look, we knew the opponents, to your point. That was set 4 years ago. We knew our non-conference dates, and then you knew that this year it's a 13-week schedule, which in my mind we should have a 14-week schedule every year where you have 2 bye weeks. So we only have 1 bye week. I don't understand what the difference between playing on August 31st one year versus August 29th another year, but we can't do that because that's week 0. So that's another conversation about the calendar. So look, it's tough. But when that thing was announced 4 years ago, who would have known? Mm-hmm. Indiana, Illinois is better, right? USC was just bursting on the scenes as a Big Ten member. Oregon was making their run and evolving, right? I mean, Michigan's Michigan. That game always means something. So you can't ever tell. So I think what should happen is we shouldn't set schedules 4 years out. We should have a yearly recalibration. You're always going to protect your rivalry games, things like that. But look how the NFL does it. They get it right. So to me, bigger picture, it is what it is. You got to embrace it. That's what we do here at Ohio State. Can't be afraid. But in the future, balance and like equity and like things like that. If there is more parity in college football, then I think you got to look at recent standings and things like that. So. It's going to be a blast. It'll be great road games. Our home games are going to be fun. Obviously, Texas game is that game will be monumental in terms of the attention around that game. So you got to just get after it and go play.
What that you mentioned some of the competitive balance, like the standings and all that. What is the structure right now? Like, is it 4 years out that you kind of look at it?
4 years out. Yep.
And when you add on top of that,
sort of protecting that rivalry game, right, which most programs have, and then again, there's no East and West divisions anymore, right? I mean, we're not playing Penn State this year, but they've been a regular on the schedule, so you're going to play a West Coast team, every year, either. And we go out to USC, but we also have Oregon. So this year we have 2. So that's kind of been the balance approach so far.
And you mentioned that the Texas game is on the schedule, and that'll close out that chapter for that home and home. And you got an Alabama one, you got a Georgia one, and I know when we talked last year, you talked about how whatever happens next, let's see what happens, right? And obviously the SEC is going to 9 conference games, so that made you guys in the Big Ten feel a little bit more at ease about where you guys were sitting with the 9 conference games, but. Because you won this game last year, it wasn't really a talking point with Ohio State the same way it was with Texas, where they felt like, I don't know if that game was worth it, right? And I mean, everybody can have their conversations of like, yeah, sure, you lost that game, but you also lost to Florida. But I don't know if this was just like, I noticed we're 3 years in the Big Ten teams winning national titles. In the 3 years it's happened, those teams didn't have a marquee non-conference game that they played that year. You guys at 24, Michigan and 23, Indiana this past season. I don't know. Are you aware of that? And is that having an impact now on whether or not you feel it's worth it in a world where you are playing 9 conference games and what might be the best conference in college football? And you guys have seen what the path to winning a national championship looks like. Does that at all impact whether or not, whether we go to 16, whether we have automatic buys or not? Are you thinking about that? Like what the end result is of having to not play 9 conference games versus playing them?
Yeah, no, we're definitely thinking about it. When I was in the SEC, when we added Texas and Oklahoma, I was one of 2 people in the conference who said we should go to 10 games. Why not? If we want content, if we want to make our TV package way more valuable, let's just go to 10. The other guy was Nick Saban who said that. Way back when. And so I just think your conference content is becoming way more valuable. And so I think we're probably in the playoff era with a 12-team playoff. It may be a little too early to say, good or bad on playing a game like Texas. Look, the most important thing is try to win all your games. Put yourself in the best position to win all of your games. And if you're in a high impact league like the Big Ten, you're going to be in a great spot. 12-0, 11-1, even 10-2. Right? We were 10-2, the year before without, like you said, a marquee game. So it might be a little early. And then if you're Texas last year, they had a bad loss, in the middle of that, right? They lost at Florida. They don't have that loss. They're probably in 10-2. So the most important thing, win your games. Don't have a bad loss. And then those games, the non-conference thing, I don't know how much it's really going to play into it, especially if it's just sort of marginal as they review things, because it happened in September. How good are you playing in November? And that was kind of Texas's argument, right? We're peaking but they couldn't shed that bad loss. We have Alabama, like you said, 2 years in a row, and then we have Georgia after that. I have not heard from my colleagues at those schools that they're interested in not playing those games, even though they're going to 9 games. I think they view those high power matchups. If anything, right now you play them and you win, and then you're in great spot. And then if we expand to 16, then it definitely probably doesn't matter win or lose, because you're playing that kind of game and you're going to get some strength of schedule metrics. So I think it's a little premature to say what the advantage is, other than just try to go 12-0, try to play in the Big Ten championship game, and clearly losing that game, we stayed in the top 2. So what does that tell you? It's hard to say, after just 1 year of metrics.
I think what's interesting too is you mentioned the 16 team, potential down the road, the expansion. Like the coaches have said in the past that automatic qualifiers and things like that would maybe incentivize, tough non-conference games to stay on the schedule, all that. And I know the Big Ten last year was pretty big on the 16 team. Now we hear about the 24 team. Just how much does Commissioner Petiti kind of talk to the athletic directors, the coaches, at these various schools, obviously yourself included, in terms of, what the Big Ten wants for the future of the college football playoff and expansion, and just how big of a role does Ohio State play in these conversations that are being had?
Yeah. Just to take a step back, Stephen, I really didn't answer your last question, by the way, because there's a lot to it.
Yeah,
there's a lot to it.
I get it.
You know what I mean? I mean, I could go down one pathway and argue this, and then I could go down this other pathway. I mean, but look, let's just win, right? Let's just win.
I get it.
Yeah. I would say
that I noticed, and so I'm just wondering, like, I don't know, from a competitive standpoint of like what gives us the best chance to win.
That's right.
Playing Texas in August, September, instead of playing 2 G5 schools and maybe an FCS opponent, maybe that give us a better chance. But I get it.
So Stefan, we meet in person 4 or 5 times a year within the Big Ten as ADs, and then we really probably since the House case settlement, we meet every Wednesday on Zoom. Pretty much every meeting, there's a CFP update of some kind. It may be a 30-second update. Hey, we have a meeting tomorrow, and that's the update. Or it may be, okay, here's what happened at the meeting, and here's a full briefing. And so Commissioner Petiti does an amazing job of communicating what's going on in the room, giving us, time to provide input, advice, counsel, direction. So very, very robust, in-depth conversations that we pretty much have every single meeting. And then I think Tony is one of the best communicators that I've seen in terms of how he interacts within the league. And then he has the same conversation with presidents. They have regular calls. So our presidents are staying in the loop. The ADs are staying in the loop. And so we all have a chance to express, our opinions. Yes, we have had this idea of going to 24 because, again, get more teams involved. In my mind, you actually keep the regular season way more active for way more teams. where everyone's alive, if you will, if there's 24 teams. And then there's been some conversation about, can we transition to 16 for a short period of time and then eventually get to a 24 model? How you get there with, automatic qualifying spots. Again, we could debate that 5 different ways. I do think the meaning of the conference championship games are going to continue to be debated, and really a lot of scrutiny on what should those games mean in terms of playoff access. I don't have a full answer there yet. Obviously, there's a TV value content piece to it, but if you're expanding the playoff, you're increasing that revenue stream. And if there's play-in games, then so to me, there's going to be way more content that could offset any loss, but that's going to be a continued discussion that layers into it. You have the president weighing in on Army-Navy game and the date. And so the calendar then becomes, an impact in expansion. And so there's a lot of variables that have to play into it for us to get to the right place. I hope we can get there after next year. The conversation is going to continue. It's not just going to die and we're at 12 for forever. There's going to be continued conversation. And I hope that Ohio State has a voice in that. The Big Ten has a voice in that, clearly. I talk a lot with my colleagues in the SEC. And so, yes, Ohio State has a big seat at the table. And, of course, with our program success, we've kind of earned that. But we also make sure we're respectful about how we do that.
Content, I feel like it's become a word you've used often.
Mm-hmm.
You stepped in front of a microphone. It's also been a word that Tony Petitti has used often in stepping in front of a microphone. And obviously, depending on what side it's on, I think sometimes it gets received well. It's like, yeah, it's more football. Of course, heck yeah, we want that. And then there's the other side of that coin who are maybe more traditionalists who feel like with every bit we're kind of killing the spirit of the sport a little bit. But at the same time, if college football is a party, someone's got to pay for the party, right? And so you think of things like, I don't know, what's like a jersey patch, which I don't know. Do you know what they're going to put on the jersey patch yet now that it's official? But just like those, in the Learfield deal, trying to balance holding on to the essence of why everybody loves this sport. But also, you're the adults in the room who have to make sure the sport can be paid for now that we live in this world where all of a sudden there's an extra hand on the pie because now we've decided that players should rightfully be getting paid for what they're doing. Yeah.
Yeah, this might be the second question I don't really answer. Stephen, here's what's kind of crazy. Here's what I think of when you kind of lay that out. Look, you could take all the stuff that we've dealt with from all the way back to about 6 years ago at this time. We first kind of started hearing about COVID. What's this thing? What's this virus? What's going on? Right. And then, middle of March, we shut. Ever since then, think about all the stuff we've dealt with since 2020. Right. And it's a lot. And a lot of the things you mentioned, right? Mm-hmm. Playoff, name, image, likeness, more money, jersey patches, field logos, right? What is content? We did a very robust, it's the biggest sponsorship deal in college athletics with Anduril. And people are like, what is that? And why put big banners across your light poles, right? So everybody's embracing this, and there's a lot of things happening. But the games have never been more popular. The viewership is up, right? Attendance is up. Revenues are up. Sponsor revenues are up. Donor revenues are up. People are investing, and so trying to balance, okay, what it used to be with what it is now and where it's also going to go, it's not the same, and it's not going to ever go back to being the same. And so how do we communicate those changes and the reason why? How do we, stay organized around our plans and what that means for the impact of our program? How do we just protect, tradition and honor that as much as possible here, especially here at our place? We want to do all those things, but the need for commercial activity, content, revenue, playoff expansion, jersey patches, logos on the field, those kind of things, we're going to continue, to evolve and grow, do it the right way, blend it in. But those activities, it's fascinating that we say that on one hand that it's changed and it's not the same. And boy, I yearn for these days, but yet the metrics are, wow, look how popular it is. And so, we need to protect that. We need to be mindful of that. We got to be careful. And that we have these conversations every single hour of every single day to make sure it all fits. And let's not forget, we are going to class and we are developing young people and we're still playing the games. Those three things I guarantee will not change while all the other stuff is sort of, moving and flowing in all these different directions that, the industry is just not used to. Did I answer your question?
Yes.
Kind of.
I think you did. I think you did.
Yeah.
So we
I
talked
put
about
a lot of themes in there to try to answer.
It's a lot of like, hey, I'm asking the direct question, and then you're giving an answer that allows people to understand what you're saying without like actually being able to. I get it. Listen.
Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah.
Ross,
we are pursuing a jersey patch, partner, right? It's Ohio State. There is demand from companies who would love to partner with us. Again, doing it the right way, making sure we're thoughtful, and making sure that the value is what Ohio State should get. I mean, that we're not going to just shortchange this. We're going to make it impactful, for across our entire program.
Well, I guess I will follow with this then before you step in, Stefan, because like the NFL's doing it right. The Super Bowl jerseys are going to have a bunch of different patches on it. The NBA has been doing it.
NBA's been doing
like 28. I don't know. Have you talked with? You're busy. You're talking to a lot of different people. I don't know. Have you spoken with people from the NBA spaces or the NFL spaces about doing it tastefully? Because it's going to happen, but like there's a way to do it where it doesn't feel like Jeremiah Smith's going to be running out there looking like a billboard.
Correct. And our partner in Nike is critical, right? And they've been at the table to make sure that, hey, when we design this, let's make sure it all fits. Let's make sure it all, just speaks to, hey, this is a Buckeye uniform. We got a Nike logo. We have a corporate logo. We got the Big Ten logo. How does it all flow? So Nike is actually a critical, and they obviously have done it with the NBA, right? They're partners with the NBA. So yeah, lots of input, lots of feedback, lots of discussion.
I have two questions with the jersey patches. I'll go with the lighter one first because we've asked you some loaded questions already. If my company's logo is blue, am I out of the running for Ohio State?
We would say there could be an alternate color. We would say, let's talk about a white color or a gray color, or something like that.
I like that.
Let's just put it that way. Because we have some prominent companies right here in Columbus that have blue in their colors.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And like with that, you guys have the new kind of extension and also kind of restructured deal with Learfield. I'm sure they're going to play a big part, in the jersey patch and, all that comes with that. What do you like about this new structure with Learfield? Why do you prefer it from what you guys had in the past? And on top of that, what does this do for NIL opportunities for Ohio State? Because I think that's what everyone wants to know is anything that happens in terms of the Ohio State athletic department that pertains to money. People want to know, okay, how's that help pay for this guy? How's it help pay for that guy? How's that, women's basketball, like all these different sports, they want to know how's it help pay. So how does this new deal with Learfield help with some of those NIL opportunities?
Yeah. First of all, the overall structure gives way more upside to Ohio State than the previous structure. And so we changed the formula where our upside should be what it is, right? It's the Ohio State brand. Learfield understood that. They obviously need to do well. They need to make money. We want them to make money, but we need a bigger piece of the upside. So we restructured the upside where it's all coming to Ohio State, in terms of a greater percentage share. We also created flexibility within the contract to, if there's a new inventory item that comes along, like a jersey patch, like an Anduril partnership, we've opened up the spirits category. You're seeing more advertising from, Buckeye Vodka or Jameson or, Evan Williams and things like that. So we've opened up some new categories, again, doing it the right way. And so what the benefit of NIL is, one, they have a team of people that are going out and sourcing primary deals between athletes and companies. and they can go to every company that's either in Columbus, state of Ohio, nationwide, whoever, nationwide meaning around the country,
Yeah.
and try to connect a brand with an athlete. And they have a sales team that will do that. So that's a lift in the NIL space. This is all above the cap dollars. And then we can take primary sponsorship dollars, and this has been in the news, right, and sort of create a marketing fund. And then we can go to a sponsor and say, look, we've got 10 athletes who have this amount of value. Can we partner them with your company? And, obviously the company has to say yes to that. And so that produces an increased upside, again, above the cap. We have the largest sponsorship revenue portfolio in the country. So if you do the math, that means we're going to have the largest NIL opportunities, available to our athletes, in the country. And so it basically produces more resources that then we can match make athletes with companies, which then go through the clearinghouse. They'll be submitted through the NIL Go system, and it just creates more revenue and more in the bucket for third-party NIL opportunities for all of our athletes. So it's a huge advantage. We were the first movers in this space last summer, and then everyone else is kind of racing to try to catch up. So we feel really good about our plan, and if things evolve again next year, then you pivot again and you adapt. But we feel really good about our relationship with Learfield, the amount of revenue that's being produced, the opportunities in the NIL world above and beyond the cap, and you've got to stay competitive, in this space.
And another question that you may not be able to answer all the way, I guess what you're talking about there is like there's a foundational structure here, and obviously things change every year, but there is a baseline for how you guys are going to conduct yourself in this space with that partnership, with the Enduro partnership, with the bringing the two major collectives in house. If I'm just an average person who's just like, I'm just a fan, I have $5. You told me to go to the Buckeye Club with my money, but I'm almost like, can you just kind of break down what the roles of everybody is in terms of who actually matters in this conversation of what you're talking about, that baseline structure, whether you're talking about the collectives, whether you're talking about Logan Hiddle's role, just like almost like I'm a 5-year-old, almost like, how does this work? How does it end up in the hands of John Lewis, the football player, or Kim Parker, the volleyball player?
Yeah.
College AD 101.
Yes.
So Stephen, you have three buckets of opportunity for the athlete, right? You have the scholarship bucket, right? Traditional, right? Cost of attendance, all those things have been added over the years. You have the institutional revenue share bucket where we can pay the athlete directly from the institution. We're doing 4 sports. So that's an MOU between the athlete and the institution that outlines a payment schedule, typically over a year period or a playing season period. That money is being paid to them directly. And then you have third-party NIL opportunities that we can facilitate. We can serve as an agency. That's the Buckeye Sports Group. Yep. The collectives are still up and running. They haven't been folded in-house mechanically. Logistically, they haven't. The people have. We want the people resources that the collectives have brought to bear, right? And so those mechanisms are still up and running because you can actually still do agreements with collectives as long as it meets the valid business purpose. So there are still some active things happening within our collective world. And we're not just talking about football, we're talking about our other sports as well. But we wanted the people power to be all on the same page. So if there's an opportunity to do a business deal, but it has a relationship with a collective, let's do it that way. If it can go through Buckeye Sports Group, let's do it that way. Logan Hiddle is our point person on name, image, likeness. He's also really sort of the cap manager on the overall institutional revenue share bucket. And then he works with football directly, Mark Pantoni. He works with Jake in basketball, and Nick Kellogg is working on this. He works with women's basketball on their numbers. He works with volleyball. And then he helps facilitate third-party NIL agreements with Learfield, Buckeye Sports Group, their staff, their sales. And then so how an athlete would get money from an NIL deal is they would have a contract with the company that they're representing, and that company would pay them based on deliverables, based on contract value, et cetera. So hopefully that summed it up in the most direct and succinct way. But our Learfield partners, they're involved. They're aware of all the third party. Every time they go out and sell a $1 million deal or a $2 million deal, they're putting an NIL component in there. So everybody's involved. We need to raise money in the Buckeye Club. That's an avenue. What that does is that helps offset some budget dollars that we can then perhaps turn into some third-party NIL opportunities. So there's a lot of pieces and parts to all of this that make make us ahead of the game, and we're trying to be aggressive, and that's what Ohio State expects.
So there's no there was a time when those collectives just kind of operated independently, right? Now, obviously, it's not like they were operating without the knowledge of what you guys there, but they could do kind of move freely around, and that was across the country. Is there, I guess, yes or no, is there anything that they were doing when they were independent, legally here, obviously, across the board, that they can no longer do now that they are in-house?
Basically, they cannot, again, according to the rules that are published, they cannot just pay a athlete directly without any reporting.
Okay.
And in the past, up until July 1st of last year, that could happen. You could just pay an athlete for no deliverables, no appearances, no nothing. It was just, that's the way NIL was defined at that time, and without any reporting, without any contract, without any reporting. We could have known about it. We could have not known about it. Again, according to the rules, every athlete has to report any agreement over $600. And if they don't, they're at risk. So we would never put our athletes at risk. That is not fair to them, nor the program. And so that's really the fundamental shift in terms of what collectives can and can't do, kind of in the new world.
And that the reporting that a collective does, that's no different than if Raising Cane's had an NIL deal and it's all under the same boat.
Correct.
And when you look so that's where the reporting thing kind of takes us to the next step of just enforcement, right? You're a big, you were on the implementation committee of just, wanting to make sure that everyone is following these rules that everyone did agree to, right? When the House settlement was done, you've been, very vocal about that of we agreed to these rules. Let's follow these rules now. They are in place. What is the next step, I guess, in terms of enforcement, right? And when an athlete does report, and if it looks like that's not something that should be legitimate, what is the next step? How, I guess that's the question that all fans have is we agree, let's follow the rules. Is there any backlash if you don't follow the rules for the schools that don't?
Yeah. That's the biggest thing that we're into right now, guys, in terms of, I think, the status of college sports. Again, for the last year and a half, we want rules, we want regulation, we want a cap, we want the House case. Let's get there. Now, I do think it took way too long to get things built. We probably could have hired somebody a lot sooner. So Brian Seeley, they're playing catch up. The volume of third-party NIL deals that have been submitted since the portal period is probably quadrupled than what it was last fall. I don't know the exact numbers, but I guarantee. And so the pace is picking up. So we're asking the same question, honestly, Stefan. What does the enforcement piece look like? And honestly, we don't really know what it looks like. We see the same reports that you see. Is anybody tracking on those? I don't know. I have no idea. There is a staff in place. The NCAA is out of the enforcement business as it relates to NIL and revenue sharing. They still have tampering rules. They still have academic rules. They still have recruiting rules. But this space is all College Sports Commission. So all those AD meetings I mentioned, we're asking the same questions. What does it look like? When is it going to get started? How's the process going to work? And then what's the back end look like? We have penalties. Penalties have been listed. They're published. Go to the College Sports Commission website. And so that's the piece that we've been in this limbo period And that's why we're stuck in this. And then we get into, and I've said this, okay, now the market has eclipsed 22%.
Right.
The market has eclipsed $20 million. Back to the previous conversation about above the cap, opportunities. So do we have to adjust that already? Right. I'm in favor of looking at an adjustment with some structure. I'm in favor of, look, if this company says this athlete's worth this amount, is there really an algorithm that says he or she's not? Is the market the market? And then if you're transparent about it and everybody kind of knows, then the market actually might level set a little bit. So we're all waiting to see what enforcement means. How robust is it going to be? What does it look like both on the incoming side and on the outgoing side in terms of adjudication? Those are all the things that the industry is kind of at a standstill, if you will, related to that subject right there. What's going to happen around the Clemson saga where, Coach Sweeney laid out very direct, information? Again, we don't know. So we're all waiting, and we're all, I would say, getting frustrated, frankly, that the system has not caught up to where the industry has gone. And we got some work to do as an industry. We definitely do.
I don't want to keep you that much longer. I want to be real. I'm not trying to be flippant when I ask the question, but just based off that information, and you're not the only person who would vocalize that, whether within your athletic department or across the country there. Maybe there's a feeling amongst some parts of the fan base of that exact sentiment of there are rules in place. It felt like last year there were these conversations of like, once we have clarity, we'll move in that direction. And the House settlement and those things were supposed to give the clarity. And then within a month of that, it was like, well, when we have clarity, we'll move in that direction. At what point, if it feels like there are maybe other programs, and I know you used the philosophy before, the concept before of like throwing rocks in a glass house, right? Everybody's saying everybody's breaking the rules except them, right? But at what point does it feel like you're going at this maybe cautionarily when it feels like everybody else is not doing that? Because as you're saying, there's not as much clarity as you thought there would be. There doesn't seem to be an enforcement of rules. And maybe you guys are, if it feels like some people feel like you are abiding by rules that don't necessarily exist. They do exist, but they're not being, you understand what I'm trying to get at? At what point do you just kind of say, bump it, we're just going to go about this the way we need to go about this, and there's nothing you can do about it?
Yeah. Look, I think that's where, alignment is critical, right? Alignment with the university, alignment with all of our coaches. If I got a sense that our coaches felt like, hey, we're being behind here, we're being put in a bad position, then you would evaluate those things. But I also know what my duties are and my responsibility is to the institution. My number one job is to always do what's best for Ohio State, period. End of story. People can argue that, all day long. But I know how aggressive we've been. I know what we've built. We know what the numbers are, that these young men and women are facilitating, that we're paying directly. We are in a competitive spot. If I ever felt like we're falling behind from being competitive, and it's not just losing one player, or people can get riled up. Oh, we lost. I can't believe we didn't pay, but they have no idea what the other stories are. Mm-hmm. They have no idea maybe what they were asking for, or what they thought their playing time should be, or was that person a cultural fit in the locker room? Maybe they weren't. And it wasn't about money at all. We could have paid them whatever we wanted to pay them, and we had the money. And so there's so many things that go into all of this, that it's not just about the money, or, hey, we should cheat because everybody else is doing it. There's a lot that goes into this, that we're not going to compromise the university. And I would never compromise an athlete, unbeknownst to them, or even trying to tell them, hey, wink, wink, no one will ever know this, but do this anyway. That's not how anyone should operate. But I can assure you, we have the tools and we have the resources to always be competitive, and that's the world that we're going to stay in, and we're going to be aggressive, in that world. And then, look, I don't know where the house case settlement is going to go in terms of revenue share cap. I don't know, CSC and NIL go. What's the sustainability of that? We hope it's here, but again, are there going to be more threats to this model that we're going to be constantly pivoting in over the next 2 to 5 years? I probably see it more that way, that we have to continue to adapt, and we will.
I want to ask you this: Ohio State has 36 sports, and they're all playing right now. So we don't want to keep you too much longer.
You probably have somewhere to be right now.
I'm talking too much. I know I'm going on and on. This is a lot. This is a lot to.
Yeah.
There's only like 900,000 court cases going on in college athletics right now. So I think that we could have conversations for forever. One more thing, kind of with the football program, that I want to ask you about before you go, is just there is a lot of focus on NIL and how much money Ohio State has in that realm. It's clear Ohio State has money, right? At the time of our recording, the fiscal year report hasn't come out, but I know last year you talked about thinking that $300 million was a very feasible number, that Ohio State could be the first school athletic department to get to that. So it's clear the resources are there, and how they're used. That's for you guys to decide. We've seen with the coaching staff that Ohio State has been very aggressive, right? Like I don't know if you can comment on specifics yet, but Ohio State the way they're building their staff with coordinators and assistant coaches and assistants to the assistant coaches. Like salary pool for like an assistant coaching staff used to be a big talking point, and now it's like there's a lot of money spent on coaches with the unlimited number of coaches kind of allowed to help out. When did you and Coach Day kind of start having those conversations initially? I guess, was it when the rules were changed, and what did you like about his approach and knowing that, okay, there's going to be a financial commitment to this, but we see, with the way Coach Patricia and everything, how it worked out last year, that there are benefits to taking this approach. What do you remember about those conversations, and what, how you think it's kind of panned out since then?
Yeah. Look, we both knew that Coach Hartline was probably going to, this year, there's probably going to be enough turnover where there's going to be opportunities for Coach Hartline. So honestly, during the season, he and I talked, hey, what if scenarios that, hey, if Brian has an opportunity and things work out for him, obviously we want to keep him as long as possible, but he wanted to be a head coach. So we started talking about what would that look like. And now, to your point, you can have basically unlimited coaches. Everybody can coach. You don't have to be an analyst, and you can only coach the coaches, and you can only have 10 people on the field plus the head coach. So we do not have graduate assistants anymore, because again, everybody can coach. So we have the 10 assistant coaches, and we just added a new one with an offensive coordinator position, and then we have analysts below that. So we started talking about different models. Obviously, with Coach Patricia's experience, boy, he's really the head coach of the defense. And we haven't officially announced the offensive coordinator, but that's the same approach as we're recording this. It may happen, today or first thing tomorrow, but that's the same approach. We need a head coach of the offense, because Coach Day has so many things as the executive director, really, if you will, the CEO of Ohio State football. You've really got to think that way. And so that was the approach. That's what we talked about. There's still budgets. We're still mindful. But again, here at Ohio State, you have to make the investment. Football has to be performing on all cylinders, every single day, the best of our ability. That's going to take funding. That's going to take commitment. That's going to take creativity on behalf of Coach. I believe I can help him, map some things out, and we're having those conversations. It's a collaborative approach. And then we have support, from our board and from President Carter. And, those things are important as, things continue to evolve. That alignment is critical. But it's really fun mapping these things out. It's really fun putting the puzzle pieces together. Coach picks the people. That's his call. I support, the finances and the structure. And I think we can have the best structure in college football to continue to stay, on this cutting edge and continue to stay on a great run that we have.
So I do want to close with this. I asked you this last June when all this broke for the first time, and it just feels like it's maybe something to just continue to ask as things continue to change here. 36 varsity sports, some of which you're probably about to go see as you get off of this.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of changes, right? You're coming off of a transfer portal where you just had more guys leave the program than at any other time, though. I mean, you'd be a fool to not think that you were expecting some level of that attrition given where the sport is at the point. Do you still think it's feasible to have 36 scholarship sports at Ohio State, right?
It is. Okay. It is. As we sit here today, as we, we're in the middle of the fiscal year for FY26. We have a good plan for FY27 as we sit here today. But again, just like we did when I first got here in the summer of 24, we did a big assessment. You're probably doing that every 2 to 3 years, given the landscape. The same thing will apply. Can we have the same experience for all of our athletes as we do for the football team, where they all feel, supported at the highest level? And can we have that robust competition? How we fund them, how we define them, may continue to evolve. But as we sit here today, yes, we can support 36 sports. Our fans are great. Our donors are great. Season ticket holders are great. We're going to continue to be smart, but also push, on the revenue side, because we need all those resources to keep those 36 sports. But we're confident in the plan, and that's a priority. That's a commitment from the university level as well. That's not just me saying that. That is a board level conversation. That is a president, Ted Carter. He and I have those conversations a lot. It's fluid. It's fluid. You can't say that it's not. You can't say that you don't have to always assess. But that's our goal. Every single time we wake up is to support all of our athletes in those 36 sports.
This was very informative, even though I asked some questions.
A lot, I know.
Yeah. I know. I was a little nosy with some of those. Yeah. I get it. I know who I am. But thank you so much.
Thank you guys for letting me kind of go on and on. I know these are deep topics, so appreciate you guys having me on.
This is what everybody wants to know about right now, right? And everybody wants to know if Ohio State's still going to be good at football. And hopefully this does a little bit. This 45 minutes gives people a little bit of reprieve that, yes, Ohio State will still be good at football. Thank you once again, Ross Bjork, for joining us. For Stefan Krajisnik and Ross Bjork, I'm Stephen Means. Talk to you guys later.